I recently found out my wife, Sarah, has been cheating on me. But the way I found out? It wasn't through her confessions or a discovery of some text messages, it came from my neighbor, in the most unexpected way, and it felt like my entire life was turned upside down in a single moment. When I went to the bar down the street one night to unwind after a long week, I had no idea that my whole world was about to shatter. I've lived in this neighborhood for a couple of years now, and one of the people I've gotten to know is my neighbor, Mike. He's the kind of guy you meet at a party, and then you end up hanging out with him regularly after that. Mike's in his mid-40s, recently divorced, and honestly, I always found it a bit strange how open he was about his personal life. But I never judged him for it. We'd had a few beers together, shared some laughs, but nothing too deep, just your average neighborly acquaintance. Anyway, it had been a rough day, so I walked into the bar, grabbed a stool, and ordered a beer. Mike was already sitting at the bar, nursing a whiskey, and waved me over. I wasn't in the mood to talk, but I sat down next to him anyway. "Rough day?" Mike asked, looking at me over his drink. "Yeah, you could say that," I muttered, taking a long sip of my beer. My mind was already somewhere else, on work, on life, on everything. Mike chuckled, then leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "You want to hear something that's gonna blow your mind?" He glanced around the room before continuing, "I saw your wife last night." I didn't even look at him. "Yeah, so?" "She was probably out with friends or working late. You know how she is." Mike's face grew serious, and he placed his glass down. "No, man. It wasn't like that. I saw her, but not with friends. She was with someone else. A guy. They were all over each other." My blood ran cold. I remember the way his words hit me, how they sank in like a stone thrown into water. The shock was instant, followed by confusion. I wanted to laugh it off, to brush it aside, but I could see the sincerity in Mike's face. He wasn't joking. He wasn't playing me. He wasn't lying. Who was he? I asked, my throat dry. Mike shook his head. "I don't know his name, man, but they were intimate. It wasn't just some friendly conversation or a casual drink. I'm telling you, Jack, it wasn't just harmless fun." I sat there, staring at Mike for a moment, trying to process what he was saying. "You're sure? You didn't misread it? I've been around enough to know what I saw. You can take it however you want, but I'm telling you, she wasn't out with friends." My hand was shaking, and I could feel the anger start to creep up, a slow burn in the pit of my stomach. Everything, came crashing down in an instant. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was real. Sarah had been cheating on me. She had been with another man, and Mike, of all people, had to be the one to tell me. I don't know how long I sat there, but the next thing I knew, I was standing up, my fists clenched. I needed to do something, anything. I couldn't sit here, pretending like nothing had happened. Mike tried to say something else, but I didn't hear him. I didn't want to hear him. My mind was spinning. I had to leave. I needed to confront her. "Jack, you all right?" Mike asked, his voice softer now, more concerned. I didn't answer. I just grabbed my jacket, tossed some cash on the bar, and stormed out of the bar. My thoughts were a mess, my chest tight with a mix of disbelief, rage, and confusion. Sarah had been lying to me for God knows how long. I had trusted her with everything, and she had broken that trust with someone else. My heart was pounding in my ears as I walked back to the apartment, barely even feeling the cold air against my skin. When I got home, the apartment felt suffocating. The walls, the space, everything seemed to close in on me. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her now? Should I wait until she came home? Should I pretend like everything was normal and catch her in the act? I didn't know. But I was angry, so angry. As I paced in the living room, my hands trembling, I realized I couldn't just let this slide. I couldn't let her get away with this. She needed to feel what I felt. She needed to know that I wasn't going to stand by and let her betray me like this. I heard the door open and close. Sarah was home. "Hey, babe, She stopped when she saw my face, and immediately, I could tell something was wrong. Before she could say anything else, I cut her off. "Who's Chris?" My voice was low, dangerous. Her eyes widened. "What? What do you mean?" I held up phone, the message thread from Chris right in front of her. Her face drained of color. "Jack, it's not what you think." I didn't let her finish. I was too far gone. "Not what I think? You've been having sex with him behind my back, Sarah. 4 months. Her mouth opened, and then closed. She couldn't form words. "Jack, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen." I shook my head, my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles were white. "Sorry? Is that what this is? A mistake? You're sorry? It's too late for apologies, Sarah." The anger coursing through me was like a raging river, and I could barely hold it back. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew one thing: I couldn't just sit there. Not anymore. I needed to make her feel this. I needed to make her understand what she had done. I don't know why I didn't scream at her right then and there. Maybe it was the shock still settling in, maybe it was the feeling of complete betrayal clogging my chest. But I couldn't even hear what she was saying. Sarah was begging me for forgiveness, claiming that it just happened, that she didn't know how things got so out of hand. The excuses were endless, but every word felt like a knife in my heart. She wasn't sorry for me, she was sorry for herself. She was sorry that I had caught her. I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted to hurt her, to make her feel as small as she had made me feel. I knew that wasn't healthy, but right then, I didn't care. I just needed to do something. I needed revenge. I pushed past her and walked straight to the kitchen, gripping the counter as I tried to calm myself down. She stood there in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Jack, I'm sorry," she said again, but the words had no weight. They meant nothing. I turned to face her, my mind racing. I had so many emotions swirling around: rage, humiliation, hurt, but above all, I felt betrayed. All the trust one had given her, all the love I had invested in our marriage, and she threw it away for some guy named Chris. It wasn't just the sex that hurt, it was the deception, the lies, the betrayal of everything we'd built together. The idea of revenge hit me hard, and I suddenly had a clear image in my mind of how I could make her understand the magnitude of what she had done. But I didn't want to act impulsively, I didn't want to make a rash decision that I would regret. I needed to plan this carefully, to make sure that my revenge was calculated, that it would leave a mark on her. I needed to show her the consequences of her actions, make her see what she had thrown away. Underscore 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 underscore. The next few hours were a blur. I told Sarah to leave, that I couldn't stand to be around her right now. She begged me to stay and listen, to work through this, but I couldn't look at her. I couldn't stand hearing the same empty apologies. I needed to be alone with my thoughts. But as I sat in the silence of the apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about the best way to make her feel the pain she'd caused. I needed to make her regret this affair in the most profound way. I needed her to understand that I wasn't going to be the guy who just forgave and moved on. I wasn't weak. And then, my mind snapped to Greg. Greg's been my best friend for years. He was the kind of guy who always had an answer for everything, the guy who'd never judge, always there when I needed him. So I called him. I didn't even think about it, I just dialed his number and waited for him to pick up. Jack? His voice sounded distant, like he was in the middle of something, but he didn't hesitate. What's up? I need you, I said, my voice strained. I need help. Sarah, she's been cheating on me. I just found out. I don't know what to do, man. I don't know how to handle this. Greg paused. I could feel the weight of his silence, but then he spoke. I knew something was off. I'm sorry, buddy. But don't do anything stupid. Take a breath. We'll figure this out. I can't let this go, Greg, I said, the anger rising in my chest again. I need to make her feel it. I need revenge. She needs to know how much this hurts. I hear you, Greg said, his voice even now. But you need to think this through. You want revenge, I get it. But there's a way to make sure she understands the consequences of what she's done without becoming a monster yourself. Let me help you with this. We can come up with a plan. You don't want to regret your next move. All right, I said, reluctantly. I'm listening. Underscore 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 underscore. The next few days were a whirlwind. Greg and I spent hours talking, planning, and hashing out different ideas. I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to settle for some petty, meaningless revenge. I wanted Sarah to feel the full weight of what she had done to me, and to us. We came up with a plan that wasn't about some over-the-top dramatic gesture. It wasn't about slashing her tires or spilling the beans to her family. No, it was about something more calculated, something that would eat at her day by day. The plan had 3 steps, and each one would hit Sarah where it hurt the most, her pride, her sense of security, and her belief that she could just get away with this. I wasn't going to just be angry and lash out. I was going to make her realize what she had thrown away, and, more importantly, show her that I was stronger, better than she ever gave me credit for. Underscore 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 underscore. Step 1, would start dating again. I wasn't going to rush into anything serious, but I wanted to be seen by Sarah, maybe not right away, but soon. The goal wasn't to make her jealous, it was to show her that I had options, that I wasn't just some guy she could use and discard. Step 2, I would focus on myself. Greg's advice was simple, show her that I was better than ever, more successful, more confident. I would hit the gym harder, focus on my career, and start doing the things I loved again. I wasn't going to sit around and let the betrayal define me. Step 3, I would take back control. No more waiting around for Sarah to come to her senses or apologize. I wasn't going to let her dictate my life. I would make sure she saw what she lost, but more than that, I would be the one to choose my next steps. Greg helped me set up a few online dating profiles, and we even started brainstorming ways to make the whole thing look effortless. Just be yourself, Greg told me. You've got everything it takes, Jack. You're a catch. Don't forget that. And for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't just the angry guy anymore. I wasn't just the man who had been wronged. I was me, and I was going to rebuild my life, piece by piece, and show Sarah that I was better off without her. But little did I know, the real pain was yet to come for Sarah. The plan was just beginning, and I was ready to execute it, no matter the cost. The first few days after deciding to move forward with Greg's plan felt like a blur. I was angry, heartbroken, and almost numb from the betrayal, but slowly, I started to focus on the steps we had laid out. I wasn't going to sit around and sulk, or worse, beg Sarah to love me again. I had to show her that I could move on, and more importantly, that I was stronger than she thought. Step 1, start dating again. I know it probably sounds petty, but I needed to do it. Sarah had spent months lying to me, sneaking around behind my back, and I wasn't going to be the guy who stayed at home, brooding. No. I needed to show her, not just for her sake, but for mine, that I could still have a life. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't worthless. With Greg's help, we set up a few profiles on some dating apps. It was a strange experience, seeing pictures of myself again, describing who I was and what I was looking for. I hadn't done anything like this since before I met Sarah. It felt almost like a fresh start. At first, I was hesitant. What if it felt wrong? What if I wasn't ready? But as I started chatting with a few women, nothing too serious, just getting to know them, I felt my confidence slowly start to return. And when I finally agreed to meet one of them for a coffee, it was like a light switch flipped in my brain. I remembered who I was. I remembered that I had value. Her name was Emily. She was warm, funny, and easy to talk to. We didn't have any deep, life-altering conversation, but it was refreshing to connect with someone without the heavy weight of Sarah hanging over my head. I didn't mention anything about my past, of course. I wasn't there to use Emily as a form of revenge, I was there because I needed to remind myself that I was capable of finding someone who appreciated me. The coffee date went well, and we agreed to meet again. I felt good. I wasn't jumping back into a relationship, but I wasn't alone either. And that felt like progress. Step 2, focus on myself. The gym became my second home. I threw myself into my workouts with everything I had, channeling my anger and frustration into every rep, every set. I wasn't just working out to look good, I was working out to feel strong, inside and out. I also started taking up new hobbies I had let slide over the years. Photography was something I used to love, and I decided to get back into it. I bought a new camera and started taking weekend trips to nearby parks, just capturing anything that caught my eye. I felt a sense of peace in these moments, like I was rediscovering a part of myself that had been buried under the weight of the marriage. And at work, I focused on rebuilding my career. I'd been so wrapped up in my personal life for the past year that I hadn't been putting my full effort into my job. Now, I was determined to get back to my best self. I started taking on more responsibility, taking pride in my work again, and finally feeling like I was in control of my own life. But the most surprising thing was how quickly the old Jack started coming back. The guy who didn't need validation from anyone, the guy who was driven, independent, and confident. I felt like I was finally becoming the man I had been before Sarah's betrayal. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her to tell me I was worthy. I was worthy because I believed it. Step 3, take back control. This was the most important part of the plan. I had spent so much of the past year questioning my worth, blaming myself for things that weren't my fault. But now, I had to take my power back. I made a conscious decision to stop being available to Sarah. I stopped answering her texts, ignored her calls, and when she came by the apartment, I didn't open the door. It wasn't about playing games. It was about making it clear that I wasn't going to be at her beck and call anymore. I wasn't going to beg her for attention. I wasn't going to chase after her. The silence was almost deafening at first. It was hard, not hearing from her, not seeing her. But it was also incredibly freeing. Every time I resisted the urge to reach out, I felt stronger. I was no longer her backup plan. I was no longer someone she could come to when she felt guilty or lonely. And then, one evening, she showed up at my apartment. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, pale, her eyes red from crying. The sight of her almost made me feel sorry for her, but I pushed that feeling away. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, can we talk? I know I messed up. I'm sorry." I stared at her, trying to hold on to the anger, trying not to feel anything. "Sarah," I said, my voice calm but firm, "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. You've broken my trust in a way that can't be fixed. You've hurt me in ways you'll never understand." Her face crumpled as she started crying again. "I never meant to hurt you. I made a mistake. It was just a fling. I was lonely, Jack. I love you." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to hear her excuses anymore. The truth was, I didn't want her back. She had shown me who she was, and I wasn't going to beg for someone who didn't value me. I wasn't going to go back to a woman who had betrayed me and thought a few tears would make everything better. "I think it's time we end this, Sarah," I said, turning away and walking toward the door. "Goodbye." As I closed the door behind her, I felt a strange sense of peace. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was free. Free to live my life on my terms. Free to be the man I had forgotten I could be. And even though there were still moments when the pain would resurface, I knew that I was doing the right thing. I was moving on. I was taking control, and nothing, not even Sarah's regrets, was going to change that. But as I thought about it more, I realized that the final piece of this journey was still missing. I had been focused on myself for so long, building my life back up, but there was still one thing left to do. I wasn't just going to let Sarah go without making sure she understood. I needed to make her regret losing me. And that's when I realized what the next step had to be. Sarah needed to feel the loss of me, and in a way that would make her understand that I wasn't going to beg for her to come back. It wasn't about making her jealous for the sake of revenge, it was about showing her that I was better than what she had reduced me to. That's where Greg's help came in. We had discussed a few different ideas, but nothing seemed to hit the mark until we put everything together. The first thing we needed was time. I knew that if I showed Sarah any signs of weakness, any signs that I was still hurting, she might try to worm her way back into my life. So, I kept my distance. I stayed focused on myself, the gym, my hobbies, and spending time with friends who were supportive but didn't ask too many questions. I didn't let Sarah get a glimpse of what I was doing. But Greg and I had planned something else. I needed to be someone else in Sarah's eyes. Not a better version of the man she had known, but a new man entirely. Someone that wasn't desperate for her affection, but someone who was desirable in a way she could no longer reach. I started going out more, attending social events, showing up at bars, and talking to women. At first, it felt like I was trying too hard, but after a few weeks, something changed. I realized that I wasn't doing this for Sarah anymore. I was doing this for myself. The more I put myself out there, the more I realized I could be happy again, without her. And each new interaction reminded me of how much of myself I had forgotten while I had been focused on the lies and the betrayal. One night, I went out to a bar with Greg. We weren't looking for anything serious, just to have a good time. It was a casual night, the kind where you don't expect much. But then I met Rachel. She was confident, charming, and had a warmth that made everything feel effortless. She was exactly what I needed. Not because I was looking to replace Sarah, but because I needed to know that I could be wanted again, by someone who appreciated me. I didn't tell Rachel about Sarah, about the affair, or about any of the pain I'd been through. This night, I was just Jack, nothing more, nothing less. By the end of the evening, we had exchanged numbers, and I had the distinct feeling that Rachel was interested in something more. But I kept it casual. I didn't need to rush into anything. I wasn't trying to win anything, I was simply living my life again. The more I kept my distance from Sarah, the more I started feeling like myself again. The second part of the plan involved the things that I knew would hit Sarah hardest, her pride and her need to believe that I was still the man she could control. I had to show her that I wasn't waiting around. I wasn't broken. I had moved on. And the best way to do that? I needed to subtly flaunt my new life. I didn't have to rub it in her face. I wasn't trying to humiliate her. But I wasn't going to be the guy she could come back to, no matter how much she regretted her affair. I started showing up at events I knew Sarah frequented, bars, social gatherings, even the places she'd take her friends. I wasn't obvious about it, but I made sure that if she was there, she would see me. Not with Rachel, but with other people. I wasn't hiding anymore, and that was exactly what I wanted her to notice. A week later, Sarah reached out to me. Her text was simple: "Jack, can we talk?" My first instinct was to ignore it. I didn't owe her anything. But something made me respond. Maybe it was because I wanted to hear what she had to say. Maybe it was because I needed her to finally see what she had done. I agreed to meet up. I didn't know what to expect, but I wanted to see her face when she saw me. When she realized I wasn't the broken man she had left behind. She arrived at the cafe we used to frequent, looking nervous, her eyes still red from crying. "Jack," she said softly as she sat down across from me, "I know I hurt you. I've been thinking about everything, and I can't believe I did that to you. I never meant for things to go this far." I looked at her, studying her face. She was still trying to convince herself that she could somehow fix this, but I wasn't buying it. I leaned back in my chair, letting her talk, but I wasn't really listening. Not anymore. I had heard it all before. "I don't know what to say," she continued, her voice shaky. "But I know I lost you. And I'm sorry." "I've heard this before, Sarah," I said calmly, my voice even. "And honestly, I don't need your apology anymore. I've moved on. I'm not angry. I'm just done." Her face fell. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but nothing came out. She was finally seeing it. The truth. I wasn't the man she could walk away from and come back to when it was convenient for her. "I hope you figure things out, Sarah," I said, standing up to leave. "But I'm not the guy you used to know. I'm moving forward, and you need to do the same." As I walked out of the cafe, I felt lighter. The anger that had consumed me was gone. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I had taken control of my life. And Sarah? She was left with nothing but the realization that she had lost something real. Something she could never get back. I didn't need to see the regret in her eyes to know that I had won. The plan had worked. The revenge wasn't about hurting her, it was about showing myself that I could move on. That I could be stronger. That I could be better. And that's exactly what I was. It's been a couple of weeks since I saw Sarah at the cafe. She hasn't reached out to me since then, and I haven't heard from Chris either. The silence is almost peaceful, but I know it's only temporary. Part of me thought that once the dust settled, I'd feel differently. Maybe I'd be ready to forgive, or at least find some way to move past it all. But the truth is, I don't need to. I've let go of the anger. I've let go of the need for closure. The revenge I sought wasn't about retribution, it was about proving to myself that I wasn't going to be anyone's second choice, that I wasn't the fool who could be manipulated. And I think Sarah is starting to realize that too. The first few days after that conversation, I found myself thinking about her more than I expected. I kept wondering if she felt any guilt, if she regretted what she had done. But after a while, I stopped. I stopped worrying about her. I stopped wondering if she was okay. The truth is, she's the one who made her bed, and I'm the one who got out of it. I wasn't going to let her actions continue to weigh me down. So I kept living. The dating app dates continued, though nothing serious came of them. Emily and I still kept in touch, but she wasn't looking for anything long-term, and neither was I. We were both just passing the time, reminding ourselves that we still had options outside of whatever mess Sarah had left behind. I kept hitting the gym, kept working hard, and kept focusing on the things that had been pushed aside for so long. Slowly, it felt like I was putting myself back together, like I was becoming the man I used to be, the man I could have been all along. I didn't need Sarah to validate me. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. But one night, just when I thought everything was behind me, I ran into Sarah again. It wasn't at some random bar or a social gathering. No, this time it was at a grocery store, of all places. I'd been trying to get a few things for dinner when I saw her across the aisle, standing in front of the produce section. I froze. I didn't know whether to walk away or to approach her, but I did the one thing I thought I wouldn't do, I approached her. She turned and saw me. For a moment, she just stared, and I saw something in her eyes, regret, sadness, maybe even fear. I wasn't sure. But I felt nothing. Not anger. Not resentment. Just indifference. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling. "Hi. I didn't expect to see you here." I nodded, my expression neutral. "Hi, Sarah. Yeah, just picking up some stuff for dinner." She smiled weakly. "I've been trying to find a way to reach out to you. I really need to talk. To explain, to apologize." I didn't say anything right away. I wasn't sure what there was left to say. She'd apologized enough times already, and each time, I just got more tired of hearing it. But I could see how much she was struggling. I could see the guilt in her eyes, and for the first time, I felt no satisfaction in it. I didn't want her to feel guilty. I didn't need her to feel guilty. I just wanted to be free. "I think I've heard everything I need to hear, Sarah," I said quietly. "I'm not angry anymore, but I don't need your apologies. I'm moving on." Her face fell. "I didn't think it would be this way. I didn't think you'd just walk away and let me go. I thought we could fix this." I could feel the old resentment creeping back up, but I held it back. "I can't fix what's broken, Sarah. You've already made your choice." She started to tear up again, but I didn't feel the need to console her. I didn't want to play the role of the guy who got hurt but was still holding on. I wasn't that guy anymore. "I hope you figure things out," I said, my voice calm. "But I'm not the person you can come back to." I turned and walked away, not looking back. And that was the moment when I truly knew I had moved on. I wasn't playing the victim anymore. I wasn't someone who needed to hear Sarah's regrets or apologies. I was Jack, and I was in control of my own life now. Over the next couple of weeks, the reality of what I had done started to settle in. I had taken back my life, step by step, and had started creating a future that wasn't anchored in betrayal or hurt. It wasn't always easy. I had moments of doubt, moments where the anger would bubble up, especially when I thought about how much Sarah had hurt me, but I knew that I was in a better place now. Greg was right. He had been with me every step of the way, reminding me to take it slow, to make sure I didn't let my emotions rule my decisions. He reminded me that revenge was just another form of holding on to the past, and he was right. When I finally let go of the need to hurt Sarah or get back at her, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't think about Sarah every day anymore. I wasn't worried about what she was doing or whether she was sorry. I had done something for myself that I never thought I'd be capable of. I had truly moved on. And in doing so, I had become stronger. More self-assured. More content with who I was. I was still on my journey, and I had a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living my life on my own terms. And that was worth everything. And so, with a sense of peace I never thought I would find, I turned the page. The chapter with Sarah was over. I had won back my freedom. A few months had passed since the encounter in the grocery store, and I had settled into my new routine. Things were falling into place. The gym, dating, photography, these were things that made me feel whole again. Every day was an improvement over the last, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. The anger that had consumed me for so long was a distant memory, and with it, the need for revenge. But even with all the progress I had made, there was still a nagging thought in the back of my mind: did Sarah ever truly realize the magnitude of what she did? Did she feel the consequences of her actions the way I did? Greg and I had talked about it, and while he urged me to let it go, part of me still felt unsettled. I had seen the look in her eyes when I told her I was done, but I hadn't seen any real reflection from her. I didn't know if it was because she had truly moved on or if she was still in denial, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to understand that she had lost me. For good. And that's when I decided, I wasn't going to let it end like this. It wasn't about trying to hurt her, at least not in the way I had initially thought. I didn't want to make her feel bad for the sake of it. But she needed to understand that I was better off. She needed to see the man I had become, stronger, healthier, more confident, and realize that she could never have that back. I had worked so hard to get to this place, and I wasn't going to let her walk away without acknowledging the loss. That's when I put the final piece of the plan into motion. I called Emily, the woman I'd gone on a couple of coffee dates with, and asked her if she'd be interested in coming with me to a friend's gathering. It wasn't anything fancy, just a casual get-together at Greg's place with a few mutual friends. The night of the gathering, I arrived early to help Greg set up, and as the guests began to trickle in, I started to feel a sense of calm. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't worried about what Sarah might think. I was simply there to enjoy myself, to have a good time. And sure enough, Sarah showed up about an hour into the party. I saw her from across the room, her eyes immediately scanning the crowd. And when she saw me, her face froze. For a moment, she didn't move. She just stood there, her mouth slightly open as if trying to process what she was seeing. Emily was standing next to me, laughing at something I had said, and Sarah's gaze shifted to her. I saw her jaw tighten. She looked confused, like she wasn't sure if she should approach me or stay where she was. But I didn't acknowledge her. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I wasn't going to let her think that she had any claim over me anymore. She hesitated for a moment longer, then slowly made her way toward the kitchen. I could feel her eyes on me as she passed, but I didn't look back. Emily and I continued talking, and for the first time in a long time, I realized I was at peace. The night wore on, and Sarah stayed in the background, talking to people, but keeping a distance from me. I could tell she was watching me from across the room, her gaze flicking toward Emily every now and then. But I didn't let it affect me. I was confident in my own skin. I was happy with where I was in life, and Sarah had no place in it anymore. It wasn't until later in the evening, when everyone had a few drinks in them and the atmosphere had loosened up, that Sarah finally approached me. She stood a few feet away, looking down at the floor, then back up at me. "Jack, can we talk for a minute?" Her voice was shaky, uncertain. She wasn't the same confident woman I had once known. She looked vulnerable, almost as if she were afraid of what I might say. I glanced at Emily, who gave me a small nod of encouragement before walking over to chat with Greg. Then, I turned my attention back to Sarah. "What do you want, Sarah?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. "We're past this. There's nothing to talk about." She looked at me, her eyes filled with guilt and regret. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I thought I could fix things. I could feel the old anger bubbling up inside of me again, but I fought it down. I had already forgiven her in my own way. I had already moved on. She didn't need to hear the words she wanted to hear from me. I'm not here for closure, Sarah, I said quietly. I've already closed that chapter. I'm not the guy you can come back to. And you're not the woman I thought you were. What's done is done. Her face crumpled again, her lips trembling as she fought back more tears. I know. I know. And I'm sorry. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Sarah's tears didn't have the same effect on me anymore. I had moved on. I had built something better, something stronger than the version of myself that had once depended on her. I think it's time for you to go, I said, my voice still calm. You've got your own life to fix now. As Sarah stood there, tears in her eyes, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about walking away from the past and into a future where I was in control. I watched her leave the gathering, her shoulders hunched, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the need to make her suffer. I felt free. The plan had worked. It was done. Sarah was a part of my past now, and I was finally living for myself. A few weeks later, I met up with Greg to celebrate. We grabbed a drink at the same bar where we had originally discussed the revenge plan. This time, the conversation was different. There was no anger, no bitterness. You did it, man, Greg said, raising his glass. You took control. You took back your life. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Yeah, I did. And it feels damn good. We clinked our glasses and shared a moment of silence. I didn't need to go through more pain or punishment. I had learned everything I needed to from that chapter, and now I was moving on, stronger, wiser, and finally free. The plan had worked. I had gotten my peace, and now I was going to make the most of it.